You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, as always, we put Ghana first. Time, it's not our friend at all, but I'll share a few messages and then introduce my next guest to share with us. The registered nurses will speak to us about why they are acting at this time. You know, there are CSOs too that have come together, as many as 34 of them and counting, and some individuals also coming together under the Citizen Coalition who are also asking a number of questions. And the Defense Minister is of the view that these kind of agitations could actually lead to a destabilization of the Republic. How so? Tintin says that this government has failed, but they don't know that they have failed. Is it ignorance or arrogance? Little Tete says, when people can get away with crimes just because they are wealthy or have the right connections, the scales are tipped against fairness and equality. Right is right and wrong is wrong. The real Mary, is it, or Marvin? The real Marv says, you know when you are in trouble, so you look for someone who is also in trouble, so you are both the same. That's how our issues are, rather than looking for sustainable, permanent solutions. Answer Bain says, who caused the banking crisis for the government to pay? After paying with tax money, what happens to the bankers who spend the customers' money? Well, you know, there's a tax that we are all paying towards that issue. Johnny Sefe says, Ghanaian politicians, one party will promise us rice and stew. Another party in opposition will claim rice and stew isn't good for Ghanaians. Give the party chance. Stew and rice is what will be provided to Ghanaians. Abdul Wisdom or Wiseman says, they won't stop this comparison thing. Those member states' economy are doing better than Ghana. Selfless leadership is the only thing Ghana needs in order to get away of this economic hardship. Elvis Dufour says we need to move away from the textbook economics. Let's address the basic needs of life: food, shelter, and clothing. Without these, it will always be a wild goose chase. And then the lassie, we always borrow and we have nothing to show for it. Finally, Rock Ghana says, there's nothing special here. I can guarantee you that we'll be going to the IMF again in 6 or less years' time. What a prophecy. Let's hope it doesn't come to pass so that we can grow our own things, homegrown, as they say, and then survive another IMF. Now, let's go on the phone lines, and I'd like to hear from the nurses first. Perpetual Oforie Ampofo is president of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. Thank you for your time, but concerns are already being raised that unions like yours, we have 4 teacher unions already that have hit the streets. Actually, there's a strike, and children are the ones that are not getting being taught in class. This time around, is it the best decision to take?
All right. Thank you, Samson. Greetings to all your listeners. I must say that the issue about cost of living allowance is something that is of much concern to all organized labor groups. It is true, the teacher unions have laid down their tools. They are on strike. Others have threatened to go on strike. Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association issued a press release and indicated it was looking up to all the stakeholders to do the right thing, and that is to call for a public sector joint standing negotiating committee where we'll all discuss these matters and ensure that workers are cushioned to be able to face the current difficulties of the economy. The increases in prices of goods and services is one that affects all of us. And you realize that we went into a negotiation for base pay for the year 2021 and 2022, and we got 4% and 7% respectively. This was a big headache for all leaders of organized labor groups, with bashing from our members, because even at the time, the difficulties they were facing, they were expecting more than the 4 and the 7%. But of course, we understood the position of government at that time and the challenges that was in the economy. Now, this year, the 7% we even received has been eroded by the high rate of inflation. And therefore, the real value of our salaries as we are receiving it is never the same as it was before. And that is why we are calling for the 20% COLA to cushion all public sector workers. It's not just about teachers. It's not just about nurses and midwives. It's about all public sector workers.
What do you say to those who say, look, this thing, everybody is suffering all over the world, so to speak. And even for government, appointees have taken a 30%, or is it, salary cut. Why can't you do the same? I was speaking to a group of police officers, and they said, look, please don't use that example to us at all. The percentage cut they have taken, what does it mean? It means absolutely nothing to them. There's ex gratia for them. And one reminded me that not long ago, I sat on this platform and spoke about people receiving DSTV subscription allowance, and even for their lens that they wear, receiving allowance up to 500 Ghana cedis for it. So I shouldn't use that example. But I mean, if you look at the situation, the leaders, as in political leaders, are also doing something about this, are they not?
I'm going to tell you the same thing your friend told you, and that is, we don't think that cuts has any impact on their pockets. And for that matter, what we are asking for is legitimate. Look, Article 71 holders, others who are on certain types of salaries and all that, it doesn't, it puts them in a certain category that makes them more comfortable. Now, when you talk about public sector workers, and you look at, just like I said earlier, the 4% and the 7% that we received, and you look at our circumstances today, it is nothing to write home about. And the difficulties we are facing, the 4% and 7%, we sacrificed as organized labor or as worker leaders. We sacrificed. That was a huge sacrifice. And if you remember, the bashing that we got from workers at the point where in some unions had to roll in terms of taking the leadership out and all of that. We have made sacrifices. And therefore, we think that at this time, we are in mid-year. The 7% we received is nothing if you look at the rate at which inflation is. And therefore, we are only calling on government that it's important that we sit and judge all. We are happy to note that a meeting was held yesterday. We were all there. We discussed and we've set out the modalities for a meeting next week, Tuesday, to begin discussions on this COLA, because we were made to understand by the ministers of finance, education, employment, and other government entities that were there, like the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission and the like, that these issues about the cost of living allowance has been escalated to His Excellency, the President of the Republic, and therefore they are committed to ensuring that they look at the issues critically and come to our aid as workers. So we are looking forward to the meeting next week, Tuesday, and looking forward for something fruitful to come out from those discussions.
All right, please hold on there for me. And let me bring on Dr. Kojo Pumpuni Asante of the CDD, who is also a member of the Citizen Coalition. So far, 34 citizen CSOs, civil society organizations. I've not seen this before. How many CSOs are left after 34 of them? And then there are a number of individuals, including Professor Kwame Karikari, Professor Techua Menu, Professor Kofi Abochi, Professor Edward Bokping, Martin Pebu, ignore myself, I'm there too, Akoto Ampao. Tell us, Kojo, what is this for? That CSOs will all come together in such times and seeking to pile so much pressure on, leaders who are already reeling under such economic circumstances. Your statement that you issued, 12-page statement, you talk about so many issues, including the management of the economy, and from the way things look, you guys may even be hitting the streets. Never heard of this in our country's history. What is the agenda here?
Yeah, good morning, Samson. Thanks for having me. Just let me make a quick comment about your earlier discussion. And I have to say that it is this same kind of frustration that has led us, here today. It was just frustrating and at some point, excuse me to say, irritating, just to hear the posturing of, government representatives talking about, this back and forth on this IMF. Some of the things that were being discussed, I thought, does not acknowledge the sensitivity that's needed, at this time. I mean, fuel is what, 12 cedis or so a liter. Food prices are going up.
14 is supposed to be.
People are struggling. So just a clear acknowledgement of the times. And you see that the challenge is that this is not just something, a flash in the pan. We are anticipating that in the next couple of years, we're going to have a very difficult time. So whatever it is we are doing with IMF, government cannot do it alone. It has to go with the people if we are going to be able to come through this well. So it's some of this frustration that, led us to come together because we put a political arrangement in place. We put all these systems in place. And yet the people we are relying on to serve our interests, to champion our welfare, constantly seem to serve themselves, constantly seem to do it with impunity, abuse the power, and just engage in pervasive corruption, wasting our money. And then we come back, it's almost what they call a boom and bust economy. And we've just come to the point that unfortunately, citizens have to do more. They have to step in to help correct, these sort of recurrent problems that we came to have with accountability and transparency and inclusiveness. A lot of the decisions that government continue to take is not inclusive. It seems like government exists for itself. And that cannot be the whole concept of democracy that delivers dividends. If we have been inclusive in terms of our e-levy, maybe there could have been a different way in which we pursue this, and we'll all be benefiting for it. So we are here because we want to change the culture of accountability in this country. It has to change, otherwise we won't get the benefits of democracy.
So for example, let's take one issue. What are you going to do? You have immediate demands, which include what you talk about, corruption and needless waste of public resources. But the issue, for example, that you talk about, the Auditor General not exercising the powers of disallowance and surcharges against people who are stealing and pilfering around the place. Occupy Ghana is part of this, is in this citizen coalition, correct?
Yes, right.
Occupy Ghana has been on this for years now. They got a law. Actually, they were the ones that drafted the original process after they won the case in the Supreme Court, and then they were invited to make input and then empowered the Domelevo. And we know that Domelevo recovered in excess of 66 million Ghana cedis. 66
million, that's right.
Yes. Now, this Auditor General is simply not using it. Occupy Ghana is writing every day. What differently are you going to do? And what do you want government to do about that? It's an independent office. The president or whoever is not supposed to try dictate what he has to do.
Yes, and I think individuals have to be held accountable for their own actions. The power is within the Auditor General's hands. We don't think that this is a matter you have to be worried the president about. Yesterday, we also submitted a letter asking for a meeting next week because there is no way, if a public officer deliberately decides to ignore the Constitution, even after a Supreme Court decision, then there has to be an accountability problem. And if that is the case, that person is not fit to hold that office. So we are saying we want a meeting next week to understand what this problem is. We also know that over 10,000 people have not declared their assets and liabilities as is demanded by the Constitution. All these processes and mechanisms are put in place to prevent corruption, to make sure there's value for money, to make sure that the monies that we are contributing, our little monies, whether you are at the market, you are paying tolls, you are doing this. In this year, we said we're going to raise as much as 80 billion. Now, if you raise 80 billion and then you waste it, you don't even find ways to make sure that people do not steal from it, then, you know, it's like we are wasting our time. We are going through all of these things. So what we are saying is that tomorrow we want a meeting next week with him for him to explain to us why this is becoming a problem. But the accountability culture has to start now. And if that doesn't happen, we will go and pick it. If we have to go to his office after we make noise enough for him to do the job, and if he's not going to do the job, then he has to leave.
You raise concerns about the reclassification for the president to vote. Process. You talk about Ejapa. You are also not happy, and you want an accounting for COVID funds, among other things. The defense minister is of the view that these kinds of agitations and the things that you seek to do, like the 4 teacher unions have started, the nurses too, if God doesn't, intervene, so to speak, and they don't get their COLA, then we're going to have more industrial action. He says this will lead to instability. It's not good. You don't have to be doing this at this time.
I completely disagree. Actually, this is the best time to do it because we are not some mindless thugs out there who don't have the interest of our country at heart. Actually, we are committed patriots. We want to make sure that, when this IMF is gone, we are not back to the challenges. If we go and take IMF money and we are not ensuring that we are doing surcharges, we are not ensuring that we are accounting for COVID funds, we are not ensuring that we are transparent, we'll have the same problems and we'll go back to the IMF. So it is in our interest, and it's in government's interest also to be inclusive in the decisions that it is taking. We are all in it. This IMF problem and the challenges we're going to face for the next couple of years is going to affect all of us. So it's not some government, somebody sitting somewhere making a decision for themselves that is going to benefit. So I think that from a security perspective, and actually we want to even help in terms of the security perspective, because we feel that creating spaces like this for citizens to engage and discuss how do we move forward together is a better security measure than marginalizing people, having your way, imposing things on people. That is what is going to create instability.
Okay.
So I would encourage government to engage all these groups, create the opportunity for us to discuss so that we can work together to secure Ghana and make sure that we have that culture of accountability institutionalized.
Right. John, what do you say? In these times, and the basic schools are being left, no teachers.
Yeah, in fact, I was even checking from the school website, and I was confirming the feeding grant for school feeding, 0.97. That's the actual amount. So in difficult moments like this, I expect government to be more engaging. Because the teachers went on strike because they claimed that they wrote several letters and they were ignored. So I think that
we are broke. We have gone to IMF. They're asking for money. 20% at least.
Engage them. Even if you won't give workers anything, at least give them that courtesy and engage them. But when they write to you, they communicate, and you don't even respond. then it takes it and escalates it to another level.
The head of the Labour Commission was complaining yesterday. You don't go out there, stand somewhere and announce a strike. There's a process you have to follow. So if there's law, why don't you follow it?
The Labour Commission itself hasn't been constituted. The Labour Commission itself hasn't been constituted since the election. So these are some of the issues that makes it difficult for one to even sympathize with the system. Yes, there are challenges, there are difficulties, but I think government should prioritize. Government should engage. In all this too, I want to hear the TUC. Because I'm hearing different labor unions, nurses, teachers.
The TUC has spoken.
I thought that the TUC would be at the forefront and ensure that at least we get somewhere. But as it stands, Samson, the truth is that living conditions are difficult. I mean, we just talked about inflation, we just talked about fuel price, the exchange rate. Times are really, really tough. So I think government should sit back, reprioritize. You see, why are they asking for cola?
Bottom line, they need extra money because reality is that their money, or whatever you call
the
it, purchasing power has drastically, reduced. Can government afford it?
And I'm saying that even if you can't increase wages, you can deal with food security, because the teacher's wife goes to the market and prices are increasing. So what can you do to at least slow down on the escalating rate of prices? Because that then hits their pocket.
You know my worry.
My final
so
worry.
It's money. It's money.
Is that
the money is not there, is it?
We can do something if we reprioritize. We can do something if we put things within the right perspective. Because looking at my tabulation and calculation, if we don't even take time, by September, fuel, the availability of fuel would be a major problem for this country. Now the fuel is available and expensive. If we don't do things immediately, by September, we're even going to have fuel shortages.
May have to call Dampare here because this is fear and alarm. Sri Lanka, we haven't gotten to that. Yes, Afenyo.
Yes, quickly on the strike issue. I think just the Ministry of Labor issued a statement, and the statement is reassuring that government is still open to the engagement. And I would want to read, the content of the statement, at least for the benefit of our colleagues, those who are listening to us, that at the end of the Friday meeting, they agreed to continue the negotiation, and then parties have agreed to discuss. So the point you made, a step has already been taken. So, that must be understood in that context. Earlier on, I was raising issue about this cocoa prices, and it's important to know that Cocoa Board Chief Executive just sent a message just for emphasis that Ghana is the only country that provides extension services and input supply, service to farmers. And from 2017 all the way through, we were paying higher until recently, So really, if you are talking about providing extension services and input supply, whereas in Côte d'Ivoire, there is no extension services provided and there are no input supply given to farmers.
There are people who are looking to see government tighten its belt a lot more.
That I agree.
There's a big government size, so Bolo size government, like they have said. There are, dualization, deputy, 3 deputies, 4 deputies, in various places. What do you think can be done in that direction to give a signal to the people?
We are not in normal times, and I would agree to the suggestion that something must be done to reassure the populace that government means well. From 2017, we demonstrated that good faith. We never resolved on any of our campaign promises. Of course, you can't have 100% success story, but I believe also that what Ghanaians expect now is some much more proactiveness in the way we approach things.
Thank you.
Let's see as the days and the weeks unveil.
Thank you.
Then let's see.
Thank you very much. Alexander Kwamina Afenyo-Marking is MP Efutu and Deputy Majority Leader. He also represents the country in the African Parliament, ECOWAS Parliament. Dr. Theo Echampong, political risk analyst and economist. Bright Simmons is Honorary Vice President, Imani Africa. You listen to Perpetual Forian Pofo. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough time for them because we will be looking at their issues a lot more, perhaps in next week, because they are going into discussions with the Labour Ministry and government at large. She is president of Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. Dr. Kojo Pumpuni Asante is Director, Advocacy and Policy Engagement at the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, CDD, and he's also with the Citizen Coalition. John Abdullahi Jinapo is MP Yape Kusogo and member Finance and Mines Committees of Parliament. Of course, earlier we also had Dengba Tobiga, member Finance and Economic Pillar, Center for Social Justice. I'm Samson Ladia Yanini.